Some kids don't grow up because they want to. They grow up because life gives them no choice. One day they're playing, and the next they're managing emotions, fixing problems, and holding everything together. No warning, no ceremony, just pressure. And years later, they wonder why they're always tired, always alert, and secretly craving rest they don't know how to take. In today's PsychoScope video, we're exploring the psychology of a child who grew up too fast. And listen closely, because this isn't just about childhood. This is about why some adults can handle chaos but struggle with peace. Why they feel guilty for resting. Why asking for help feels uncomfortable. And why being strong sometimes feels lonely. Before we go deeper, take 1 second to like this video and subscribe to PsychoScope. It helps this channel reach people who silently carry these experiences, and it tells YouTube this conversation matters. Stay with me. Psychology says children like this don't suddenly become adults. They slowly step into responsibility. Maybe the home was unstable. Maybe emotions weren't safe. Maybe someone needed support, so the child adapts. They become observant, careful, emotionally mature. They stop expressing needs. They start managing moods. They learn to stay calm even when their body is overwhelmed. This is called early emotional responsibility, and it changes the nervous system. They weren't born strong. They became strong because weakness wasn't allowed. Over time, this creates survival independence. These children learn not to wait for comfort. They learn not to expect help. They handle things alone, even when they shouldn't have to. As adults, they often look capable and composed, but inside, trusting support feels risky. Rest feels unfamiliar, and vulnerability feels unsafe. What's even more complicated is something called split maturity. Parts of them grow up too early. Responsibility, awareness, control, while other parts never get properly cared for. So they may seem wise beyond their years, yet feel emotionally empty, guilty, or disconnected inside. They never learned how to need others safely. And here's something most people don't realize. When you grow up too fast, your nervous system learns that calm doesn't last. Quiet feels suspicious, so even as adults, they stay alert. They feel uncomfortable doing nothing. They feel valuable only when they're needed. Many carry a silent belief: if I receive care, someone else suffers, so they minimize their needs. They apologize for wanting support. They feel guilty for resting. Receiving love feels strange, not soothing. At the same time, growing up too fast sharpens emotional awareness. They read people quickly. They sense tension in rooms. They predict problems before they happen. But psychology shows they also stay guarded. They know how much it costs to care without protection. If this feels personal, psychology doesn't say you're broken. It says your nervous system adapted to pressure early. You learned responsibility before safety, strength before softness. Healing doesn't mean becoming weak. It means learning that you're finally allowed to rest. So let me ask you something. Did you grow up carrying more than a child ever should? And are you still carrying it today? Let's slow this down for a moment and really understand what happens inside a child who grows up too fast. Psychologists say a child's brain is supposed to develop in layers. First comes safety, then connection, then exploration. Only after that comes responsibility. But when life forces responsibility too early, everything flips. The child learns duty before safety, awareness before comfort, control before play, and that changes how the nervous system wires itself. Instead of learning, I am safe, the brain learns, I must stay alert. Instead of learning, someone will help me, it learns, I have to handle this. Instead of learning, my feelings matter, it learns, my feelings are inconvenient. This is why many people who grew up too fast become emotionally quiet adults. They don't panic easily, they don't break down in crises, they stay calm while everything is falling apart. On the outside, they look incredibly strong, but inside their body is running on old survival code. Their nervous system is always scanning, always preparing, always bracing. They might not even realize it, it just feels normal. This early adaptation creates hyper-responsibility. They become experts at reading rooms. They notice small changes in tone. They They sense tension before words are spoken. They learn how to adjust themselves to keep peace. They become emotional firefighters. If someone is upset, they try to fix it. If someone is stressed, they absorb it. If something feels unstable, they step in. Not because they want control, but because chaos feels unsafe. Over time, this turns into people-pleasing, perfectionism, and overthinking. They don't relax easily because their body learned that being relaxed once led to something bad. Calm never lasted long in their childhood, so even as adults, peace feels unfamiliar. Silence feels suspicious. Rest feels undeserved. They feel most comfortable when they're busy, needed, or solving someone else's problems. Many of these adults don't see themselves as traumatized. They say things like, "It wasn't that bad." Others had it worse. "I'm fine." But psychology shows trauma isn't only about big dramatic events. Sometimes it's emotional absence. Sometimes it's being unseen. Sometimes it's becoming the adult in the room before your brain was ready. Another common pattern is difficulty receiving. They give easily. They support others naturally. They show up when people need them. But when someone offers help, they feel uncomfortable. When someone cares for them, they feel awkward. When someone tries to protect them, they don't know how to relax into it. Because somewhere deep inside, they learned that needing things creates problems. So they become low maintenance. They minimize themselves. They say, "I'm good," even when they're exhausted. They apologize for taking space. They feel guilty for resting. They learned early that love often came with responsibility attached. And that creates a very quiet kind of loneliness. Not the loud kind where you feel abandoned. The quiet kind where you feel unseen even when surrounded by people. They also tend to attract emotionally unavailable partners, unstable friendships, or situations where they have to be the strong one again. Not because they want that dynamic, but because it feels familiar. Familiar doesn't mean healthy, it just means known. And here's the hardest part. They often don't know what they need. They know how to survive, they know how to perform, they know how to take care of others, but they don't know how to be taken care of. They weren't taught that. They skipped that lesson. So adulthood becomes confusing. They succeed externally while feeling empty internally. They build careers while struggling with connection. They handle pressure but collapse in quiet moments. They feel old inside, tired in their bones, and they don't understand why. If any of this sounds familiar, hear this clearly. Nothing is wrong with you. Your nervous system learned to adapt to early pressure. You didn't become this way by choice. You became this way because your environment required it. And awareness is the first step toward healing. Now let's talk about how growing up too fast shows up in adult relationships. Because this is where many people feel the most confused. People who carried early responsibility often don't fall in love the same way others do. They don't look for excitement first, they look for safety. They're drawn to people who need them, depend on them, or feel emotionally complicated. Not because they enjoy struggle, but because their nervous system learned that love means responsibility. So they become the caretaker, the listener, the fixer. They show up fully for others, but quietly disappear from their own needs. They confuse emotional labor with connection. They confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. They confuse love with being useful. And when someone actually tries to take care of them, it feels strange, almost uncomfortable, sometimes even boring. Because healthy love feels unfamiliar to a nervous system that grew up in chaos. This is why many adults who grew up too fast say things like, "I don't know why I keep choosing the wrong people. I always end up giving more than I receive." Psychology explains this through attachment patterns. When your early environment taught you that closeness comes with stress, your body learns to stay guarded, even when your mind wants connection. So you may crave intimacy, but panic when it gets real. You may want to be loved, but feel overwhelmed when someone truly sees you. You may long for support, but struggle to accept it when it arrives. There's often a deep fear underneath it all. A fear of being too much. A fear of needing too much. A fear that if you relax, everything will fall apart. So you stay strong. You stay useful. You stay in control. Even when you're exhausted. Another common pattern is emotional numbness. Not because these people don't feel deeply, but because feeling deeply once came with consequences. So the nervous system learns to turn the volume down. They may struggle to cry. They may feel disconnected from joy. They may feel like they're watching life instead of living it. They go through the motions while carrying a quiet heaviness inside. They're productive, responsible, dependable, and emotionally tired. They also tend to be incredibly empathetic. They notice when someone's energy shifts. They pick up on unspoken tension. They sense when something is wrong before anyone says a word. But this empathy didn't start as a gift. It started as survival. They learned early that keeping others okay was their job, and because of that, they often absorb emotions that aren't theirs. They take on stress they don't need to carry. They feel drained after social interactions. They carry emotional weight that doesn't belong to them. Over time, that creates burnout. Not just physical burnout, emotional burnout, soul-level exhaustion. What makes this especially painful is that many of these adults don't feel allowed to complain. They tell themselves they should be grateful. They downplay their struggles. They say, "I've handled worse." But just because you survived something doesn't mean it didn't affect you. Strength doesn't cancel out pain. It just hides it. And here's something important. Growing up too fast often teaches a child to abandon themselves. They put everyone else first. They ignore their own limits. They push past tiredness. They silence their feelings. So healing later in life isn't about becoming stronger. It's about becoming softer. It's about learning how to check in with your body. It's about recognizing when you're overwhelmed instead of powering through. It's about allowing yourself to need. It's about realizing that rest is not laziness. Rest is repair. Safety is medicine. Connection is healing. And this part matters deeply. You don't heal by blaming your parents. You don't heal by replaying the past over and over. You heal by noticing your patterns in the present, by asking yourself simple questions. Why do I feel guilty when I rest? Why do I struggle to ask for help? Why do I feel responsible for everyone's emotions? Why do I stay in situations that drain me? Those answers lead you back to the child who learned to survive early. And that child doesn't need criticism. They need compassion. Now let's talk about healing. Not the motivational quote version of healing. The real kind. The slow, uncomfortable, deeply personal kind. Because if you grew up too fast, healing doesn't look like becoming tougher. You already mastered that. Healing looks like learning how to be gentle with yourself without feeling guilty. It starts with something very simple but very powerful. Noticing your body. People who grew up too fast often live in their heads. They analyze everything. They think their way through pain, but their body has been holding old stress for years. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing, a jaw that never relaxes, a nervous system that doesn't know how to fully exhale. So healing begins when you pause and ask, am I safe right now? Not in life, not financially, right now. And most of the time the answer is yes. That small realization slowly teaches your nervous system that the emergency is over. Another part of healing is learning to receive. This feels unnatural at first, letting someone help you, letting someone listen, letting someone care. Your instinct might be to say, I'm fine. But healing asks you to try something different, to stay, to allow, to accept, even when it feels awkward. Because receiving doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. You also have to relearn rest, not scrolling rest, not distraction rest, real rest. The kind where you do nothing productive, the kind where you don't earn it, the kind where your worth isn't attached to output. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. Your nervous system might get restless, you might feel guilty. That's normal, that's old programming leaving your body. Another powerful step is naming your needs. People who grew up too fast were rarely asked what they needed, so they stopped checking. Start small. I need quiet. I need space. I need reassurance. I need a break. These sentences feel simple, but they rebuild something that was skipped in childhood: self-connection. And here's something important. Healing doesn't mean you stop being strong. It means you stop being alone in your strength. You don't lose your resilience, you add softness to it. You don't erase your survival skills. You balance them with safety. You don't become dependent. You become supported. Over time, you start choosing different relationships. You stop chasing emotionally unavailable people. You stop overgiving. You stop abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. You start noticing how your body feels around someone. Do I feel calm? Do I feel tense? Do I feel seen? Your body knows the truth before your mind catches up. And slowly, very slowly, you realize something powerful. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to carry everything anymore. That child who learned to be responsible too early, they deserve peace now. If this video spoke to you, pause for a moment. Take a breath and acknowledge how much you've carried. You didn't imagine it. You lived it. Now I'd love to hear from you. Did you grow up feeling like you had to be the strong one? Do you struggle with resting, asking for help, or receiving care? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. And if this video helped you understand yourself a little better, please share it with someone who might need it too. Healing spreads when stories are passed on. Thank you for spending this time with PsychoScope. Remember, you weren't born strong, you became strong, and now you're finally allowed to rest.